even that short presentation. DW, please. I think most of us know you. Most of us know our minister and deputy minister, and some of you know this end and that end. But Madam Sophie, please, just press the button there. Just press the button there. There you go.
Thank you, facilitator. Good morning, everyone. As mentioned, let me kindly introduce the high table guest of honor. Here we have USAID represented. Can you just stand and say hi?
Hello.
Then we have the chair of the National Wildlife Corridor Forum from the Prime Minister's Office, Karibu. Then we have Honorable Deputy Minister for Natural Resources and Tourism, Dastan Kitandula. And finally, we have our guest of honor. She will greet you later.
Thank you very much, Madam Sophie. Can we give a bigger hand? Here it was. There are, how many? 5 of them. Let's do factorial 5. You know the factorial. Do you want to start with 5 or start with 1? 5. Okay, let's go. Let's go. Mgeni rasmi, unaona wa participants walivyo sharp. Kuna moja tupa bonus moja tu, lakini inatosha. Dr. Keo, karibu.
Good morning, Honorable Minister. My name is Julius Keyu, the Director of Research at the Tanzania Wildlife Research Institute. And we'll make a short presentation on behalf of my colleagues, Dr. Hamza, Dr. Nindi, and John Sanare, overview of the wildlife corridors. First and foremost, I'm humbled and privileged to stand before this critical mass of conservationists. And to some, I might be preaching to the converted, but I thought that it's better that even if there is 1 or 2 who haven't heard anything about wildlife corridors, we have this short presentation so that we can have a common platform before we start the discussions in the other sessions. So I will make 4 things. Number 1 is just to know the definition of a wildlife corridor. Number 2, to make a presentation on why wildlife corridors are important. Number 3, to be on the status or overview of wildlife corridors. And we have done a number of work, but we will use kwa Kuchinja Wildlife Corridor, Tanganyeti, Rasaraki, and Nyerere Wamimbiki Wildlife Corridors, just to showcase the status of them. And lastly, we will have challenges of wildlife corridors, and then some conclusions and recommendations. So the first and foremost thing is just about what is a corridor. And we know it is an area that is naturally used by animals. So you cannot create a corridor for wild animals. It's used naturally by them to pass from one habitat patch to another. Or it is an area that connects 2 habitat patches through a matrix of unsuitable habitat. Some say it's an area that connects 2 protected areas. That is a colloquial definition. Number two, as I said, we will just highlight on the importance of wildlife corridors. Why are we crying for wildlife corridors? Why are we crying for connectivity? We know it's among the topmost challenges of wildlife conservation in the country. So the number one importance is that corridors allows wildlife to have their requirement. No single habitat, no area has all the requirements for wildlife throughout the year, be it food, be it water. No single area can provide all of them at the same time throughout the year. So they have to move in search of their critical requirements. Number two, it allows to import genetic variation, especially in isolated population, and prevent them from population bottleneck or inbreeding. So new individuals come in, breed or mate with resident individuals just to avoid inbreeding. Number two, it allows wildlife to be rescued in case you are having a declining population in a certain area. So if few individuals have remained, let's say impala, and in another area there are more impala, it will create space for other individuals to move from the area where they are more and be rescued from population decline. Number five, it allows animals to be saved or rescued in case of any calamity. Be flood, be fire, be any weather challenge. If there are floods, if there is fire or any hazard, animals can move out of that hazard through a wildlife corridor to another habitat patch where they will be safe. Without a corridor, if there is fire hazard, then animals will have a challenge on where to go. But the last thing, wildlife corridors play a great role in reducing human-wildlife conflict. By allowing animals to pass in an area with limited human activities. So in our National Human Wildlife Conservation Strategy, it's written that corridors are an essential tool for enhancing human-wildlife coexistence. In a long term, we can use a number of strategies in a short term, in a medium term, but for long term, wildlife corridors are very critical to enhance human-wildlife coexistence. So, number three, I just wanted to show these slides to showcase that really wildlife need to move. We have been using the Kwakuchinja, Tanganyet, Lasaraki corridors as a pilot or as a laboratory for 4 years to monitor wildlife movement through the JICA African Development Bank project. So I don't have a pointer, but you will see is it brown or whatever, those are collared elephants. We collared 13 elephants in Kwakuchinja corridor. So on the left, you will see elephants moving from, this is a Tarangire National Park. You will see collared elephants moving through Kwakuchinja Wildlife Corridor to Manyara National Park, or they can go to Manyara Ranch. Number two, you will see some collared elephants moving from Tarangire National Park or the WMA moving through Mswakin Chini to Manyara Ranch. And you have these corridors here where elephants are moving from Loksale, Randlen, WMA, up to Mtoambu Game Controlled Area, or sometimes up to Losimingor mountain. So you see, elephants or animals need places where they can move from one place to another just for the sake of having their ecosystem requirement. This is in Longido, and you see animals from Arusha National Park. They can go to Kilimanjaro National Park, but they will go through Enduimet, WMA, then they will cross Tanganyet or Lasarak corridor into Lake Natron game controlled area. So these are some of the corridors that showcases the importance of wildlife movement and setting an area for them to move. But in a worst case scenario, this slide just showcases that for mega herbivores, especially these bulldozers of the ecosystem, the elephants, sometimes they can need even more area. This elephant used almost 4 corridors. It was collared here in Longido, game controlled area. You will see the movement. It went to Amboseli, but crossed Tanganyet corridor, crossed Lasarak corridor in Longido, moved to Lake Natron game controlled area, then back to Monduli, to Losimingori forest, crossed Kwakuchinja, the corridor connecting Tarangire National Park and Manyara National Park, but also used Mswakini corridor and entered Loksale. So this is a massive movement. Probably it was during breeding season when they are on mast. They might need even a bigger space compared to the normal movement. It's unusual, but it showcases the importance of setting areas or corridors where animals can move. These are movement of collared vultures, hooded vulture, white-backed, white-headed. You see, the same corridors, more or less, are being used by other species, including avifauna, to move. If you will have a network of protected areas and the corridor map, you will see they are using also the corridors to move from one area to another. We collared 4 elephants in Swaga Swaga. We know some years back, this was a corridor. Elephants move from Swaga Swaga Game Reserve through Barangidararu, Gedawari, they go to Mount Hanang Nature, Forest Nature Reserve, they go to Yaeda Chini, they were moving to Ngorongoro or going to Maswa Game Reserve for 4 years because this corridor is completely blocked. We have Mogitu village somewhere here. Now, for 4 years, no single elephant has managed to make it to Balangidararu, Gedawari, or even to Mount Hanang Forest Reserve. So you can see the impacts of blocking a wildlife corridor, and there might be a serious inbreeding of elephants in this area. Some years to come, you might have weak individuals who, in case of any calamity, disease or drought, they will easily die because of loss of genetic variability. In a nutshell, a quick glance of wildlife corridors. John Saleh has said it nicely that we did an assessment, the first one in 2009, but good enough, in 2018, the corridor regulations were formulated to showcase the procedures on how we can go about until a wildlife corridor is gazetted. And this is just showing the government commitment in securing or safeguarding wildlife corridors. But in 2022, we did another assessment of wildlife corridors in Tanzania, where 61 corridors were earmarked. I think we have picked a book at the registration desk. It is a very robust document for every corridor for the 61, showing the species using it, the status. So read it and choose one corridor so that you can work on it. But out of the 61 corridors, 41 are threatened and some have been blocked. And that 20 corridors have been prioritized for restoration because of their conservation importance or because of their vulnerability score. So we have 20 corridors. We will show a map later just to showcase what are the priority 20 corridors we should start with. This is a document which I think we have all. If you don't have your copy, go to the USAID to Hifadhi Mali Asili, have your copy. And these are the 61 corridors in the country, connecting different protected areas, game controlled areas, game reserves, wildlife management areas. And I'm not sure if you will see, but we will give you an Excel sheet of the 20 priority corridors, which the team set and selected. Just a few of them, kwa Kuchinja and Mswakini, the one in Longido, and the Greater Serengeti to Wembele. The longer the corridor, the more the challenge is for restoring it. We have a project with the University of Dar es Salaam, Nexus project. The more villages you have, even for WMA, the more complex it becomes for management of the WMA. It is the same for corridors. And we have some important corridors like Selu Niassa. So we will distribute this document, and during our discussion you will have a list of the 20 corridors that are a priority for conservation. Conservation threats. I've been working in a number of corridors, and colleagues from Tawa, Tanapa, we have been working together, plus conservation NGOs. These are the commonest: human settlement, infrastructure development, agriculture, and livestock grazing. These are the biggest challenges in most of our corridors. And this is kwa Kuchinja. Hamza is still struggling to find an updated map for 2020. He's still doing some classification. But you see in 2008, the level of agriculture was very low. But you see this map, how agriculture has increased in this landscape. Kwa Kuchinja. And usually I say in Swahili, tumpe maua yake aliyeleta lile wazo la kuanzisha Burunge WMA. Huwa simjui ni nani. If that idea would have not been in place, movement ya wanyama kutoka Tarangire kwenda Manyara Ranch na Manyara National Park would have been completely blocked. Look at Mswakini chini, look at Mswakini juu, look at Makuyuni. Animals are struggling at night, but the only place they can make it during the day, it is through Burunge WMA. Kwa hiyo tumpe maua yake huyo mtu. So you can see bare land is increasing, water body declining, grassland declining, woodland is declining. A clear indication of habitat transformation. When you see woodland going, forest going, you are moving to a shrubland or grassland, you know that habitat will no longer be suitable for wildlife habitat, even wildlife movement. This was kwa Kuchinja, that is happening, and in some instances it's within the WMA. So we have also something to do with the governance of WMA, wildlife management areas. You see it is a wildlife management area, but you see a number of human activities. And the villagers agreed that this and this should not be done in this area, but it's happening. But even the leaders of the WMA are there. Village governments are there. So we have also to do something in WMAs. We know they have a lot of challenges, but the area, the better. This is a map just showcases some of the corridors connecting Nyerere National Park to Wamimbiki, and then Wamimbiki to Sadani, and Wamimbiki to Mikumi National Park. And you see, through the RIGRO project, the project of the ministry, look the land use, land cover for Nyerere Wamimbiki Game Reserve. You see in, oh, I'm getting old, 1980. I'm nearly to check out probably. Yeah, so in 1980 you see a good habitat, green, woodland, some forest, you see. We will go to the next year, 2000. You see 2000, things have started falling apart at the lower and at the top. And coming to 2020, mambo yameharibika kabisa. Habitat is changing. This is a wake-up call to do our part, to move away from business as usual and to act now. Otherwise, if you do modeling 50 years to come, you will see what will be happening. Probably animals will not make it. It will be full of human settlement, full of agricultural activities. Ni wanyama wachache tu wabishi kama aliyekuja Njiro akaua mtu na walioenda Dodoma kusalimia ndo wataweza, lakini wasio wabishi, they will not make it. And they make it only at night, because during the day, like moving from Serengeti to Wembere, utalii watu njiani hata kama ni mnyama, you need probably 4 days to make it. You will be in village land, you will be eaten. So it's only a few individuals will make it. Moving at night, you hide during the day. When they sleep, you start again. You can make it if you are lucky. This is a Silu. This is in Nyerere. We are used to Silu Niassa. You see Silu Niassa, some elephants. These were collared in 2000 or 1999. They were making it from Selu to Niassa. I know WWF supported Dr. Hamza Tawiri. We did a current assessment. You see Selu, Niassa in 2001. It was slightly good habitat, green, woodland, forest. Moving to 2020, things have started falling apart. You see the yellowish, reddish, so it is shrubland, it is a grassland, it's agriculture, it is settlement. So if we will not act in engaging these villages, because you know corridors are passing through a village land, we have to engage the village governments so that they accept to set aside. I think in the later discussion I will bring a new concept of corridors, because currently everybody is assuming this is a wildlife corridor. It's not. These are villages. Yeah, they are villages in a wildlife corridor. It was a corridor 1970, 1980, where there was nobody. But now we have to engage villages so that we have at least 5 kilometers stretch to make it, so that, if this village refuses, we go this way. We have to find a way. We will determine the width of a corridor. But now we are assuming all of it's a corridor. It's not. It's full of houses. It's full of agricultural activities. We have to sit with every village, review their village land use plan, and set an area, a width of which we will agree, so that at least they can move from one village to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, until they are in Nyerere National Park. and the way back, because otherwise they will not make it in some years to come. So Siluniasa, bare land increasing, cultivation increasing, grassland increasing. Over and above all, it's clear there is a significant increase in bare land and cultivation, coupled with the human settlement in most of the corridors. And this is a bad news for all of us. I was talking to one mzee at a WAZIRI conference that wazee wa zamani walikosea, akasema kweli tulikosea. We made a mistake. Buffer zones have gone. Corridors, we thought there is too much big land, it will not be finished, it will lala. We made a mistake. So for the current generation, let us not make another mistake to secure the remaining. And I'm telling you the bad news, we will have one day to agree in some of the corridors to say hands up, to give up. If you know, many we are using satellite image. For those who we have been walking in villages, you just see some corridors where we can say, hapa tunyoshe mkono. You can't remove Igando Igawa or Igando. Ila ni mji sasa hivi, utafanyaje? Hamna. So this is a map of Hamza. You see in 2001, wonderful distribution for the grazers. Not much change, but if you go to the browsers, you see, this is the Seluniasa. Where are the browsers? Wameshaanza kukimbia. You see, in 2001, grazers, we are using it very nicely. You go to mixed feeders, 2001, slightly better. But coming to 2020, you see a declining number of mixed feeders in Seluniasa wildlife corridor. So we have just remained with grazers, and they are making it because of habitat transformation, probably from woodland, from forest to grassland. So for grazers, for them it might be good news. For browsers and mixed feeders, they are not making it, and they are no longer using it as a wildlife habitat. It's a wake-up call. Human activities, livestock grazing, cultivation in Seluniasa. My last corridor, I think this is the one in which we will nearly say hands up. And the bad news with the Igando Igawa or Ruaha Mpanga Kipengele, it has a GN. So my message is that even if we are crying for GN, for the government gazettement, my friend, will not help you if you are not acting. This is the only corridor, I hear probably with Kitendeni, with a government notice gazetted through activities of Wildlife Conservation Society in 2018. But a gazetted corridor will be the first one to rest in peace. This is bad news. So we are crying for gazettement. Gazettement will not help anything if village governments and all of us, we will not take hard to make sure that compliance is enforced. You go to that corridor and you find some of the village leaders are the ones who have grabbed 50 acres of land within the corridor. The one who are supposed to enforce compliance. So gazettement will not help anything if we don't act. So Salehe is standing on my back and I'm just finishing up. So this is a Ruaha Mpanga Kipengele. You see habitat transformation. Open grassland, dense shrubland, decreasing throughout. These are some of the human activities in Igando Igawa. It's called Igando Igawa because it's between Igando Center and the Igawa Center, the width. But the length, it's from Ruaha National Park to Mpanga Kipengele. You see things that were happening when we did an assessment in 2019 in Igando Igawa. So, before my conclusions, let me just say another important threat. Infrastructure development is also a challenge in corridors. Standard gauge railway, power transmission line, way bridge, regional road, official formal settlement. There is no development project that has no impact, but in collaboration, we have the technical capacity to assist how best a development project can be done. We have done it for SGR. I can share some slides later, so that we make some underpasses, some bridges and culverts for animal to pass. We did it with Yapi Maizeki, ERS consultant and Tawiri. So it's possible. We have nothing to worry. The important thing is that stakeholders' engagement to agree on how best this development project can be done. You see, like this movement of elephants that are placed in between, there is where these are elephants from Sadani and Wamimbiki Game Reserve. This is, they are moving to Mikumi National Park. This is where we have placed a number of bridges, culverts, and underpasses for the SGR. So it's possible. My conclusion: wildlife corridors are at a crossroad. We have to prevent their loss or blockage. 2, we have to make a difference. Move away from business as usual. And to me, even for the donor community, we have to reduce meetings. We have to go to the field. I hate meetings, and sometimes I stop. There is one consortium in Tanzania, I stopped going there because things were not happening in the field. Let us fund people who are going for ground truthing, who are doing community engagement, and reduce significantly this number of meetings, because meetings will not help us if we have no people engaging communities at the grassroots. And these are my recommendations. Community education. We have to do a lot. Land is a scarce resource. Mining, agriculture, livestock grazing, everything. Waste enough, even if you die, you go back to land. So it is a scarce resource. We have to educate communities. Why set a corridor in their village land? We don't do it. We have started by failing. Number 2, for villages that corridors are passing in their village land, let us review their village land use plans so that they set an area for settlement, for cultivation, for livestock grazing, for forest conservation, but a stretch for wildlife movement. That will connect with the other village. And to review the legislation and the policy. I told Sarehe at Kibo Palace when we are making the corridor regulation. You know, we had a pressure. It's very difficult to gazette a corridor through the current legislation, because I've been in villages, I've been talking to communities, I've been talking to people. We have to do something with the legislation on how easy and smooth we can set a corridor. Thank you very much. So I've taken some time. You know, with me, when it comes to corridors, usually I have to customize my slide, otherwise I can stay for a whole day. Sorry. Samanini-san.
Don't go very far. When you press a play button for Dr. Kohi, you can hardly find the stop or even the pause. He doesn't stop talking. Said, I've been walking in all corridors, not working, but walking. He has walked all those corridors, and he can see them go. That's why he's like that. And guest of honor will have about 3 minutes. Slide. I hope the RTI person can come and get them on this machine. Just a 3 minute one. It's sent to the RTI email. So just before the next, can you clap for him? Okay, let's clap for him until he sits down. Until he sits down, until he sits down, until he sits down, until he... Okay, thank you so very much. Madam Guest of Honor, full of information with all of it. Some of us have lived enough to see the corridors function and going. To give you an example, I was in Canada in 1961, and we were traveling with a Sentika, a train from Arusha to Moshi. And gazelles and zebras were running parallel with the train. It was a corridor. Yesterday I was listening to one of the land problems in Kia. The Maasais who have been there forever, they've been living in that corridor. It's totally gone. You cannot only see pictures at the Kilimanjaro International Airport, but it's gone. And here we are, I think all of us are a bit wild. We just think of wildlife corridors. Remember, I'm not coming to a committee yet. There are others who are talking about agricultural development corridors. SAGOT, go to the agricultural policy. They identify more than half of the country which is good for agriculture. Go to the livestock policy. They also appreciate there's more than half of this country which is good for livestock. If you go to wildlifers, we are already there, even more. When you go to infrastructure, which the doctor has touched, there's a lot. There's standard railway, there's Bomba La Mafuta from Uganda, I don't know where. There are all those corridor sort of things that should be mapped together so that we have less conflict. There is no way that we can avoid the conflicts, because when we got independence, we were about 8-9 million. Today we are 60, and the land does not grow. So we have to manage our challenges. So before I invite the next speaker, I hope there are no questions yet. We'll have enough time to ask questions, unless if the guest of honor will have a question to ask. But I think we can spare some of those questions until much later. Meanwhile, can I please request our friend from USAID, Plato, Mheshimiwa Plato. I am scared of pronouncing the next name because it's very healthy. Asante. So from USAID, you can actually press the button right there and just speak from there. And we have some couple of minutes, please. You are free to talk in English or Kiswahili. Yeah, just press the button. Oh, you want to come here? Okay, please.
Does this work?
Yeah.
That's fine.
But I think if you come here, people might be happier.
Sawa, nakuja.
Asante. Asante sana. Yeah, sometimes when you sit for too long, people might imagine that you don't have legs. But when you stand up, then you have the legs. Karibu sana.
Yeah.
Karibu.
Napenda kutembea. Maybe someday I'll walk the corridors too. Honorable Angela Kairuki, Minister of Natural Resources and Tourism. Honorable Deputy Minister Dunstan. Dr. Msofe, Director of Wildlife, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. Habari za asubuhi. It's an honor to be here at the inaugural National Wildlife Corridor Forum in Dar es Salaam. I bring you warm greetings from U.S. Ambassador Michael Battle and USAID Tanzania Mission Director Craig Hart. Today marks an important step towards Tanzania's wildlife conservation journey. We come together to exchange insights on securing, protecting, and sustaining the movement of wildlife in this most beautiful country. Honorable Minister, through USAID, the United States remains committed to supporting conservation in Tanzania. We understand the challenges posed by unsustainable land use, and that such practices not only restrict wildlife movement, but also increase human-wildlife conflicts, conflicts that erode our shared conservation and development goals. Wildlife corridors can play a vital role in maintaining healthy wildlife populations by preventing unsustainable land use and reducing the risk of human-wildlife conflicts. We were proud to have provided support to the Ministry of Natural Resources and Tourism in the development of the Tanzania Wildlife Corridor's assessment, prioritization and action plan, which serves as an important guide and offers data on corridor locations, challenges, and conservation strategies. And we are honored to support tomorrow's launch of the National Policy Implementation Strategy. This strategy will build on the action plan and is a blueprint for action and a guide for stakeholders, such as us, to protect habitats, preserve wildlife populations, and secure livelihoods through vital ecosystem services. Through USAID, Tuhifadhi Maliasili the Tuhifadhi Maliasili project, and we will work together to preserve 7 key wildlife corridors. And it's a testament to the power of partnership, our partnership, everybody in this room. The involvement of your ministry and other Tanzanian government entities, including the National Land Use Planning Commission, the Prime Minister's Office of Regional and Local Government, and the Tanzania Wildlife Research Institute, has been invaluable. Our experience has shown that participatory land use planning and strong enforcement are key to protecting these vital wildlife pathways. USAID's recent assistance in enhancing the land use information system will help mitigate much of the human-wildlife conflict we witness today. By promoting human-wildlife coexistence and sustainable livelihoods within these corridors, we've seen both economic improvement and a reduction in pressures on wildlife movement. By including diverse groups, from private sector entities and civil society organizations to women and youth, into these initiatives, we have embraced a sustainable, inclusive approach to wildlife corridor conservation. Honorable Minister, our collective efforts are more than just conservation measures. They represent the building blocks of a larger legacy, a legacy that promises a prosperous future for Tanzania, where the sustainable coexistence of people and wildlife serves as a foundation for progress. For example, through our work, we have benefited the Maasai livestock keepers in the Kwakuchinja Wildlife Corridor to erect predator-proof bomas. This has not only kept away wild animals, such as lions and hyenas, from attacking livestock at night, but also protected wildlife from retaliatory killings by livestock keepers seeking revenge. Kauli mbiu ya mkutano wetu ni kuongoa shoroba kwa uhifadhi endelevu. USAID Tanzania is dedicated to this vision, and together through focused collaboration, we are poised to achieve a future in which conservation and development aren't just parallel paths, but part of the same journey. Asanteni sana kwa kunisikiliza na wakatia mkutana mwema. Thank you very much.
Asante sana. That was perfect Swanglish, and well done. I think having heard from our friend from USAID is a clear representation of our development partners who work together. We have USAID, you have UNDP, you have JIZ, we have, I think you have got that meeting of yours for the coordination on how to support Tanzania. So pass our regards to the whole team in appreciation. Okay, then it's now time to request Madam Musofe, Director of Wildlife, to come and have some few words. Not too many. And not only that, but also you can also reintroduce our chair lady, and thereafter protocols to invite the guests of honor. Karibu, madam. Tumpige makofi. Anapenda makofi.
Thank you so much, facilitator. Guest of honor, Honorable Angela Kairuki, Member of Parliament, Minister for Natural Resources and Tourism. Honorable Dastan Kitandula, Member of Parliament, Deputy Minister for Natural Resources and Tourism. Representative from the United States government through the USAID, Plato, who is the Director of Economic Growth. Representative from the President's Office, Regional Administrative and Local Government Authority, representative from the Vice President's Office, Madam Lina Kitosi, representative from the Prime Minister's Office, who National Wildlife Corridor Restoration Forum, representative from different ministries and government agencies, Conservation Commissioners, TANAPA, TAWA, Ngorongoro, TFS, representative from the Tanzania Wildlife Research Institute, Dr. Keyu, and others, conservation partners present, media fraternity, distinguished guests, and all invited participants. Good morning. Guests of honor, allow me to extend my sincere gratitude to you in person for dedicating your time to this important event, despite your very tight schedule. I also would like to extend special thanks to all who have gathered here today with us. Your presence at this forum signifies your support to the ministry and your commitment to the biodiversity conservation, people's livelihoods, and above all, in promoting tourism for the development of our country. Guests of honor, kindly allow me to first welcome Ms. Lina Kitosi, the Assistant Director of the Extra Parliamentary Affairs from the Prime Minister's Office, who is the chairperson of the National Wildlife Corridor Restoration Committee, to say a word before I can continue. Welcome.
Dear guest of honor, Honorable Angela Kairuki, Minister for National Resources and Tourism, Honorable Deputy Minister for Natural Resources and Tourism, our distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, protocols observed. Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania. May I take this opportunity to thank our Almighty God for granting us this special time to be here today and to participate in this important historical event of the first National Wildlife Corridors Forum. I would like also to thank all the participants who have traveled from various parts of Tanzania to witness this remarkable event. On behalf of our team, may I expend special gratitude to you, our honorable guest of honor, for granting your special time to officiate this important event. Thank you so much, Madam Minister. As the theme of this forum says, securing wildlife connectivity for sustainable development, I believe we are all aware of the challenges of conflicts between humans and wildlife that will continue to occur in various areas in this country. The challenge may be due to human activities that are taking place in the areas of wildlife refuge. So recognizing the importance of facing these challenges is why we have met here, so that together we can understand the importance of those areas and how we can set strategy to guide them to reduce conflicts between humans and wildlife. This step will enable us to protect and preserve them for sustainable prosperity of the country and society as a whole. Dear guest of honor, I wish to emulate the efforts of the sixth government led by Honorable Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan to protect and promote interventions to conserve our natural resources for the betterment of our nation and its people. On the aspect of wildlife corridor restoration in the country, the government through the Prime Minister's Office and in collaboration with your Ministry of the National Resources and Tourism formed a team of experts called the National Wildlife Corridor Restoration Committee, which I'm chairing, and Dr. Fortunata Msofe, the Director of Wildlife, serves as the Secretary to the committee. This committee is a cross-sectional committee comprising of almost 32 experts from different ministries and other government institutions. To mention a few, we have the Prime Minister's Office, President's Office, Regional Government and Local Government Authorities, Office of the Vice President, the Minister of Natural Resources itself, Minister of Livestock and Fisheries, Minister of Lands and Human Settlements, Minister of Works, the Office of the Attorney General. Other members are from the government institutions, namely, we have the NEMC, National Land Use Plan, TARURA, TRANROADS, TAWIRI, TANAPA, TAWA, NCAA, and TEFACE. May you please, members of the committee, rise up to be introduced. May you please rise up. Thank you so much. Honorable guests of honor, those are the members of our committee. The role of this committee is to spearhead corridor restoration efforts, considering that this duty is a long-term initiative that requires close engagement of different government stakeholders, local communities, and conservation partners. On behalf of the committee, I wish to express our special gratitude to various wildlife stakeholders for the huge support they have extended to this committee. And however, since our committee is still an infant, it has no funds to support its works. We hope that our partners or development partners herein will join hands to support the works of our committee. Dear guests of honor, without much ado, and to conclude, may I say that this forum therefore marks the beginning of our journey to achieve these endeavors. And therefore, the committee looks forward to implement your directives and working close to our stakeholders most present here. Lastly, May I thank you, all the participants, for attending these important events. May I welcome Director Dr. Msofe to invite you to officiate this important event. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lina. Guests of honor, we all know that the Ministry of Natural Resources and Tourism is responsible for the conservation of natural resources through various regimes of protected areas and areas that harbors wildlife outside of protected areas, which includes the national parks, game reserves, forest reserves, game controlled areas, wildlife management areas, to mention a few. These protected areas and other wildlife ecosystems are connected by wildlife corridors, which allow wild animals to move from one area to another in search of important resources such as food, salt licks, security, breeding sites, among other reasons. Guests of honor, currently negative interactions between humans and wildlife is a common scenario in many parts of our country. And it's mainly due to the blockage of some of the key wildlife corridors, especially those which are used by elephants. The ministry, in collaboration with conservation partners and stakeholders, has conducted corridors assessment and prioritization in 2019 and 2020, and identified 61 wildlife corridors which are still viable. But many of these corridors are currently in different stages, which are also presenting a challenge towards their sustainability. Guests of honor, securing and protecting these wildlife corridors requires multi-sectoral and integrated approaches, since those corridors are found in both village and general lands. It is from this reality that the ministry requested the Prime Minister's office to coordinate the restoration program of wildlife corridors in the country. The National Wildlife Corridor Restoration Committee formed include members from sectoral ministries, as mentioned by the chair. Guests of honor, currently the ministry, in collaboration with conservation partners, has started efforts to restore some key wildlife corridors, as mentioned by the first speaker, Dr. Keyu. These include the Mwanihana Magombera Wildlife Corridor, which connects Udzungwa National Park and Nyerere National Park, the Kwakuchinja Wildlife Corridor, which connects Tarangire National Park and Lake Manyara National Park. Another important corridor in the northern part of the country is the Yaedachini, which connects Ngorongoro Conservation Area, Lake Manyara National Park, Upper Kitete, up to Lake Natron and up to Lake Natron. But another important corridor is the transboundary corridor, which is between Tanzania and Mozambique, and this one is the Selu-Nyasa corridor that was mentioned by Dr. Keyu. This one is one of those very first initiative restoration programs, which was started by a former GIZ project, but then, as mentioned by Dr. Keyu, many of these corridors were identified, but because there was no action on the ground, then they have continued to be depleted. And in that regard, that is why we think that this forum that is led by the Prime Minister's office is very important in terms of now working on action on the ground. As mentioned by Dr. K, we need to go on the ground and make sure that we are doing the work that we have already seen that it is now in a dire situation if we are not going to do anything very quickly. Guests of honor, restoration of these wildlife corridors has been made possible from the generous support of conservation partners working with the government through the Ministry of Natural Resources and Tourism. Allow me to recognize the USAID to Hifadhi Maliasili project and STEP, who have started to facilitate and fully committed towards restoring wildlife, some key wildlife corridors in the country. I now have the great honor to welcome first the Deputy Minister, Honorable Dastan Kitandula, to come and say a few words before he welcomes you, guest of honor, to open our meeting. Karibu.
Honorable Angela Kairuki, our Minister for Natural Resources and Tourism, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. Honorable Minister, mine is very simple task here to invite you to deliver your opening speech to this annual Wildlife Corridor Forum. So without further ado, I'm humbly welcoming you to speak to this gathering. Thank you.
You can see the way my deputy minister is indeed a diplomat. Honorable Dastan Kitandula, our deputy minister for natural resources and tourism, Dr. Fortunata Msofe, our acting director of wildlife, the director of economic growth from USAID, Lina Kitosi, the representative from the Prime Minister's office, but also the chairperson for this National Wildlife Corridor Committee, representatives from the Vice President's office, President Office Local Government, Ministry of Land, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Livestock, the Office of the Attorney General, other representatives from the different ministries and government agencies present here, representatives from TANAPA, TAWA, Ngorongoro, and TFS. I've seen the rector from Weka College, representatives from Tawiri, other conservation partners present this morning, members of the media fraternity, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all. I am very glad to take this opportunity to address you today, and in particular as the guest of honor of this first inaugural National Wildlife Corridor Forum. Kindly allow me to take this opportunity to extend my sincere and special thanks to you all, especially the participants, but also the organizers, as we have gathered here to deliberate on the wildlife corridor issues in the country. We appreciate the immense dedication in terms of your time, but also the resources that you have afforded so far. I would like to take this opportunity once again to welcome you all to this very important forum. Distinguished participants, as we are aware, as a country, we have set aside about 32.5% of our land for wildlife conservation. We have so far 21 national parks, 29 game reserves, 23 game-controlled areas, 3 wetlands or Ramsar sites, but also 22 wildlife management areas. All these areas are very important, not only for wildlife conservation, but as such as they contribute immensely to our national economy, to the livelihood of our local people in the protected landscapes and sustainability. For instance, if you take some of the protected areas from the major water catchment areas in our country, but they also provide basic goods and ecosystem services to us as human beings. They regulate and support the good weather and climate, and without forgetting the presence of the diverse nature wildlife attractions, which are the ones which form the basis of our thriving tourism sector in our country. Distinguished participants, the protected areas and wildlife ecosystems, as you all know, are very well connected by wildlife corridors that allow the wild animals to move from one area to another, either in search of food, in search of salt licks, to use for breeding sites, for security, among other reasons. And you've heard the presentation of Dr. Kyeyu, and I would not like to go in deep to many reasons for search of these wild animals. But in recent years, we've seen the blockage of these corridors and wildlife migratory routes due to human-induced pressures, which as such have accelerated the human-wildlife conflict incidences in our country. As such, the expansion of human settlements, the crop cultivation, but also the infrastructure developments in wildlife corridors have been the major reasons that have been leading to the blockages. And we have also, as I've indicated earlier, we've heard from the presentation by Tawiri. The protected areas can hardly exist as islands without wildlife corridors to allow for the passages of migratory wildlife species such as elephants. As we all know, animals need space and resources just like us. They've defined their path to allow their movements. The magnitude of human-wildlife conflict in Tanzania has been increasing, and particularly to the 88 districts countrywide. As such, the human-wildlife conflicts has been of great concern to the government. And for instance, if I take for the year 2018 to the year 2022, we've envisaged an average of 28,137 people who have been affected by wildlife, including loss of over 56,972 acres of crops in the field. But it has also been revealed that most of these incidences of the human-wildlife conflicts occur within the wildlife corridors. The government of Tanzania has taken measures and initiatives to avert the situation, including the implementation of the Human-Wildlife Conflict Management Strategy of the year 2020 to protect the humans, but also their properties. I would like to assure you that the government of Tanzania is very determined and has been responsive to console the victims of the human-wildlife conflict incidences. And I'm saying consolation because we can never compensate the human life. Through the consolation program between 2018 to 2022, approximately 5.5 billion shillings has been used to console our victims in accordance with the wildlife conservation regulations of 2011. Despite these government efforts, still the conflicts between humans and wildlife have continued to increase, justifying that the current interventions need to be relooked in order to strike the practices that can promote sustainable coexistence between people and wildlife in the country. The payments given to victims cannot be compared, as I said, to the loss or damages caused by wildlife, and does not as such ultimately address the core problem of the human-wildlife conflicts. Distinguished participants, Following this situation, the Ministry of Natural Resources and Tourism has therefore developed the Wildlife Corridors Assessment Prioritization and Action Plan of the year 2022 to 2026, where 61 wildlife corridors have been identified across various ecosystems in the country. And out of these 61 wildlife corridors, 20 wildlife corridors have been prioritized for the first phase of the action plan due to the ecological significance, but also the imminent threat level for disappearance. Therefore, to embark on this journey, the Ministry of Natural Resources and Tourism, in collaboration with some of our conservation partners, including those who are present here today, we are launching this annual Wildlife Corridor Forum that will spearhead the restoration of the prioritized wildlife corridors in the country. And that is why we're here today, and I am very optimistic that this move will better guide us towards finding a lasting solution for the human-wildlife coexistence, but will also promote the sustainable local livelihoods through the wildlife corridor restoration and management. Distinguished participants, the reduction of human-wildlife conflicts will contribute to the well-being of our people, but will also strengthen conservation. Wildlife corridors, when functioning, present lots of opportunities to our people, but also to our nation at large. Opportunities to invest in wildlife-based ventures such as ecotourism, beekeeping, and other related sectors will also be present. Carbon trading has also been emerging as an economically viable sector or investment to our rural communities, but also for the wildlife corridors, and form an appropriate investment area opportunity in this new venture. Distinguished participants, I therefore wish to reiterate that wildlife corridors are also found in village lands, but the process of securing these areas does not involve the change of land tenure systems. The land will still remain to the local communities through their village governments, and local communities should therefore take advantage of the presented opportunities while still adhering to the set plans for land uses and management in their villages, so as to pave ways for corridors, as well as promoting the coexistence for people and wildlife. Distinguished participants, this forum has been made possible through the generous support from our different stakeholders, and therefore kindly allow me to recognize the Ministry of Natural Resources itself and Tourism, through our Wildlife Division, the USAID to Hifadhi Mali Asili Program, Frankfurt Zoological Society, and UNDP IWT project. I would also like to take the opportunity to appreciate the technical support that has been provided by the African Wildlife Foundation, AWF, WWF Tanzania, the Nature Conservancy TNC, GIZ, and Wildlife Conservation Society, WCS, among others. And lastly, I would like to once again take others who have not been mentioned, and we continue to seek your support and partnership towards the protection of our wildlife corridors. Distinguished participants, the experience shows that efforts to secure, protect, and sustain wildlife corridors requires long-term engagement with communities and agencies involved. I would also like to encourage continuous collaborative efforts among the partners, and would like to call upon development partners for their financial and technical support. I understand that USAID has committed to support the efforts to help securing 7 out of the 61 corridors through the Tuhifadhi Mali Asili project. Asanteni sana, and we quietly thank you so much. I would also like to encourage continued support beyond the 5 years, and I believe we'll continue to partner and secure our wildlife corridors. And lastly, before I conclude, I would like to highlight some few key messages that I think you should take away. Number one, let us continue to monitor the implementation of the National Human Wildlife Corridor Strategy and prevent the encroachment of the wildlife corridor, as the human encroachment, as we know, lead to wildlife conflicts between our wildlife and humans. And therefore, as you've seen, this has led to the encroachment also in our human settlements and destruction also of our crops. But also, secondly, let us put visible signboards so that our people can identify that the wildlife corridors which have been designated as such, so that they can be aware and understand. But also, let's continue for the public awareness and education in our communities so that they understand the importance of wildlife corridors protection and what they should do as their part. But also, fourthly, let us continue to engage with our village leaderships, but also our district leadership, so that they can see the importance of preparation of the village land use management plans, without forgetting the Ministry of Land, and I know you are present here. I know for once, as for this year, there is a budget that has been allocated for the preparations of the village land use plan. So it's important that through this forum, you can designate the villages that are emanating in those 61 wildlife corridors, which can also be given prominence and priorities, because the funding is already there through the preparation of the village land use plan. So kindly go through our list of the villages that are passing through the 61 wildlife corridors first to make the priority as such. And for this one, I'll take it up also with the Minister for Land and the Prime Minister to see how this can better be managed. And lastly, I would like to seek the indulgence of our local governments to make sure they protect for the village land use plan that has already been in place, to make sure that they are protected, they are there too, they are respected, and they are also followed. Otherwise, there is no use to have the village land use plan if there is nothing that has been done, if there is no protection, if the community are not aware of those land use plan and the demarcations that have been made so far. Lastly, I believe you'll have a favorable outcome towards this National Wildlife Corridor Forum, but also I believe you have fruitful deliberations. And lastly, I believe and expect that it will lead to pledges, to commitments, but also to further support towards the other remaining, I can say 11 corridors, but still we'll be very grateful if the partners can also go beyond the 20 wildlife corridors to be able to capture all the remaining 61 critical wildlife corridors. Distinguished participants, as we have just met towards this first National Wildlife Corridor Forum, for the first time, I expect that we'll come up with constructive ideas and strategies that will continue to enhance the restoration of the prioritized wildlife corridors in our country. Having said so, kindly allow me to declare that this first National Wildlife Corridor Forum is officially opened and launched. Asanteni sana na karibuni sana. And lastly, since this wildlife forum is not yet, how can I say, institutionalized or legal, towards the proposed amendments that we have in our Wildlife Act, kindly go through it. How can we protect it to make sure that it's sustainable, but to make sure that it has a high level participation, perhaps towards the level of the top 3 of our national leadership, to be the leaders of the forum. It's fine, you can have the officials forum, but it needs to be escalated up for well coordination, but also follow-ups, and to have success in your forum and the outcomes. I thank you once again.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, our guest of honor. It does not need to dilute. I think the speech was very clean, very direct, and loaded. Madam Guest of Honor, if you may allow just 2.5 minutes, so that at least most of us who are here know how you compile that report. It's an effort from a lot of us here, but as Dr. Kew said, these guys have been walking almost all corridors. So just about hardly 3 minutes. For those who have not seen it, you love it. And for those who have seen it already, you love it even more. So let's see, I can see that screen is on, that is on, but that one is not on.
Yes.
Maybe just, I hope you can see from that screen there. Yeah, this one is gone off, but just go on, please.
Taasisi ya Utafiti wa Wanyamapori Tanzania, TAWIRI, ni taasisi ya umma chini ya Wizara ya Maliasili na Utalii iliyoanzishwa kwa sheria ya Bunge namba 4 ya mwaka 1980. Lengo la taasisi ni kufanya, kuratibu na kusimamia utafiti wa wanyamapori nchini. Dira ya TAWIRI ni kufikia kiwango cha juu cha utafiti ili kuweza kutoa ushauri wa kitaalamu na wa kisayansi kwa wakati mwafaka kuhusu hifadhi na matumizi endelevu ya wanyamapori nchini. Dhamira kuu ya taasisi ni kuendesha na kusimamia utafiti wa wanyamapori nchini, kutoa takwimu na ushauri wa kitaalamu kwa serikali na mamlaka za uhifadhi kuhusu uhifadhi na usimamizi wa wanyamapori nchini. Utafiti wa wanyamapori ni muhimu katika uhifadhi na kuendeleza utalii. Maeneo mengi nchini ikiwemo Serengeti na Gombe ni matokeo ya utafiti kuhusu tabia za wanyamapori, ekolojia ya wanyamapori na kadhalika. Sote tunashuhudia matukio makubwa ya ongezeko la watalii nchini baada ya filamu ya Tanzania The Royal Tour, na kwa maana hiyo taasisi imeendelea na jukumu lake la kuishauri serikali, mamlaka za usimamizi wa wanyamapori na Watanzania kwa ujumla kuhusu uhifadhi endelevu wa rasilimali ya wanyamapori. Baadhi ya tafiti zinazofanywa na taasisi ni pamoja na migongano ya watu na wanyamapori, magonjwa ya wanyamapori, ekolojia ya wanyamapori, ufugaji wa nyuki, kuidadi wanyamapori na matumizi ya teknolojia katika uhifadhi, uandaaji wa mipango mkakati ya kuhifadhi wanyama adimu ikiwamo tembo, faru, sokwe mtu, twiga na kuendelea. Rais wa Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania kwa nyakati tofauti imekuwa ikiunga mkono juhudi za TAWIRI kwa kuboresha miundombinu itakayosaidia kuboresha utekelezwaji wa majukumu ya TAWIRI kwa viwango stahiki. Hii ikihusisha ununuzi wa magari mapya kwa ajili ya utafiti, ununuzi wa vifaa vya utafiti, majengo ya ofisi na kadhalika. Hii ndiyo TAWIRI. Karibu Tanzania, tuhifadhi kwa pamoja.
So, thank you very much. Madam Guest of Honor, I just thought that would be a nice appetizer for all of us. And just to mention, most of those people see in khakis, in field dresses. Some of them are here. They are all doctors. There's the chairman of the board is in there, the director general is there. They are all out there in the field doing a lot of work. Just before we move to the next step, I always like to use the example of a frog. I think some of you have heard of that. Let's not become frogs. There's that science which says if you take a frog and throw it in cool water, it will just swim, okay? But if you take it and throw it in a basin full of hot water, it will just go like, jump off. But if you take that basin, which is a metal basin, put it on a plate and start boiling it slowly, the frog will just enjoy and start swimming in there. And the first thing that will die is the brain. So the frog just sits there and just swims until it cooks completely. Do you understand that? Let us not become frogs. The world is heating up. We are losing our corridors, climate change impacts. We have all the science here. Mgeni rasmi nikiangalia hapa kuna vichwa fulani na viangalia hapa. Kina profesa, kuna na honyo wa UDS, kuna na nyahongo wa UDOM. Nikiangalia kuna vichwa vingine vimekaa sawa kweli. We have so many heads. We have youngsters who have a lot of science. I think compiling such a report, hebu angalia hawa, huyu bwana anaitwa Kadoshi huyu. Sijui anarukarukaje kama panzi. Nadhani kwenye mali asili he has done a lot of work. He is also the one who did this one. He is also the one who did this caption. Sasa press, you have na kazi ya kutupeleka mbali. Wananchi wanaweza kuelewa kitu kama hiki. Nikienda na ile buku langu ile la TAWIRI, watasema huyu msome na tubabaisha tena. But just go with a very simple clip and do it. And when I talk of wananchi, I think we have somebody from WMA in here. I must decline to say, yeah. It's the only rescue for our corridors. Somehow bring them on board. If WMAs have challenges, let's help them and expand them. It's the only way that we can do it. Nadhani Mheshimiwa Waziri hapo naweza kuclaim a bit of nami niko huko kwa WMA kwa hiyo. Lakini I'm very sure that with all these brains we can work together through kamati ya kwako Madam Chair hapa tukaweka vicorridors vyote ili tusiwe na conflicts. We have not even mentioned on my other interests in birds. Birds corridors are known as flyways. Every year they fly from Northern Europe all the way to South Africa and back. And for example, white storks, they never get divorced. They stick to one. And these corridors are coming through us. So how do we match the wildlife corridors, the flyways, the stockways? I think kupitia kamati yako na congratulations to the ministry for spearheading this. So to conclude that, the minister talked of something very, very important on how we formalize the committee. And with the authority from the DW, I would like to invite one participant to take just a couple of minutes and just take us through what does it mean by having this in place. we're just requesting this participant to do a lift presentation, if you know what that means. Without notice, without what? Rose, please. Do you know what's a lift presentation? If you meet somebody very important, you press floor number 19 and you see the guy who wants to give you money. He's in the lift. How do you introduce yourself and break the ice? By the time you're on the 5th floor, you have known each other. So this is a lift presentation for you. How many minutes, madam?
Just
3, like the video, yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Asante sana mgeni rasmi. Asante sana, nimepewa nafasi ya kutoa highlight kidogo namna ya kuanzisha maeneo ya WMA na namna ambavyo huwa tunafanya katika maeneo mbalimbali. Wildlife Corridor Restoration imekuwa identified kwenye sheria ya wanyamapori namba 5 ya mwaka 2009, lakini pia kuna kanuni za Wildlife Corridor zilizoandaliwa mwaka 2018, na katika kanuni kuna mchakato wa namna wa kuongoa shoroba. Kwanza huwa tunaanza na uhamasishaji ngazi ya mkoa pamoja na wilaya zote ambazo zinapitiwa na ushoroba husika, na katika ngazi ya mkoa na wilaya tutapata timu ya mkoa ikiongozwa na afisa maliasili wa mkoa, lakini hiyo timu ya mkoa na wilaya itashuka katika vijiji husika kwa ajili ya kwenda kutoa elimu kwa vijiji vile ambavyo vinapitiwa na ushoroba husika. Na katika kutoa elimu tutapata pia wajumbe kutoka kwenye ngazi ya vijiji ambao watashiriki kikamilifu katika mchakato mzima wa kuongoa shoroba. Baada ya kupata timu hiyo, pamoja watafanya tathmini ya maeneo yanayopitiwa na shoroba, ikiwa ni pamoja na kusaidia kuandaa mipango ya matumizi bora ya ardhi na kutenga eneo husika kwa ajili ya mapito ya wanyamapori. Katika eneo litakalotengwa kama mapito ya wanyamapori, itafanywa tathmini ya kuangalia shughuli kuu zinazoendelea katika maeneo haya na kama hazina madhara kwa jamii, lakini pia itatoa elimu ya shughuli inayofaa katika eneo hilo. Lakini pia kanuni zinatutaka tufanye tathmini ya socio-economic assessment kwa eneo hilo ili kuangalia impact ya ushoroba huo kwenye maendeleo ya wananchi na shughuli zao za kiuchumi. Baada ya kupata hiyo tathmini, itafanya demarcation ya Wildlife Corridor boundary, na tukifanya demarcation itaandaliwa public notice ya siku 90 kwa ajili ya kutangaza kwenye gazeti la serikali au maeneo ambayo jamii husika inakuwepo, serikali ikitangaza nia ya kuliongoa eneo hilo na kulitangaza kama eneo la shoroba. Ndani ya siku 90 tunaamini tunapata wale ambao wanapinga mizi katika kuongoa kwa shoroba hiyo, na ikipita siku 90 hatujapata pingamizi, tunaandalia GN ya kuitangaza hilo eneo kwamba ni ushoroba wa wanyamapori. Na Mheshimiwa Waziri, GN huwa tunaandaa wizarani, tunashirikiana na mwanasheria mkuu wa serikali, na ikishatangazwa itapewa GN namba na huo utakuwa ni ushoroba. Usimamizi wa hilo eneo la ushoroba utakuwa bado chini ya timu ile iliyoundwa ambayo inahusika kutoka mkoani mpaka ngazi ya kijiji, lakini kama kuna maeneo ya jumuiya yaliyo karibu na ushoroba huo, kanuni za WMA lakini pia na za Wildlife Corridor zinaipa mamlaka hizo jumuiya. Mheshimiwa Waziri, unaweza extend power kwa jumuiya ikaendelea pia kusimamia yale maeneo ambayo yamekuwa gazetted kama Wildlife Corridor. Kwa kifupi ni hizo hatua ambazo huzingatia katika kuondoa corridor. Asanteni sana.
Ni taasisi ya umma chini ya Wizara ya Maliasili na Utalii.
Thank you, madam. Oops, yep, better. So thank you very much, and now let's move to the next step. The next step would be a photo session. The photo session, and the experts have advised that we don't move away from the room because almost all the other places have been occupied. So we'll divide ourselves into 4 groups. We'll divide ourselves into 4 groups, and the first group would be partners. We know this work has been done with a lot of support from partners. When I say partners, it means if you belong to any of those, with the exception of the last one, USAID, UNDP, GIZ, whatever it is, WWF, AWF, all those supporting partners. It will be the first group. The second group would be the committee. I can see most of them on this side. So wale wanakamati ningeomba kabisa mje tayari upande huu. And thereafter we'll have government representation. Asasi za maliasili zisiwepo. Asasi za maliasili together with the Ministry of Natural Resources, that will be the 4th group. So does anyone not find themselves in any of those 4 groups? Development partners and NGOs, the committee members, government, non-Maliasili, and then the Maliasili. Is there anyone who is coming from none of those 4? If not, let me kindly request partners to come to the front. And say again? WMA satakuwa kwenye WMA win none. I think you'll be a partner. Yeah. So, can I request that development partners come on this side? And then the committee, kwa ajili ya urahisi, you stand on that side, we take a picture, and then come on this side. So start with the development partners, alafu watafata kamati. Tusimame upande wa kule tafadhali. Please load on your smiling face. It's time for a photo. Yeah, sasa. Mambo jamani, chukua picha zangu kwa hapa. Okay, smiling, smiling, smiling.